we are recording again. This is another session at the SciNoj Light 1 conference. It is the macroexpand-1 session. It is a beginning of a new series of meetups, the macroexpand gatherings, where we collaborate on making Clojure more present, where it is not so present yet, making it more well-known and accessible in different fields like data analysis, research, education, art, and more. And the context is this conference, which is a data analysis conference, but also the next conference, mostly the next conference that will probably take place in September or October, where we'll have a similar format where a few of us help each other create those talks, run through a research project or create a new library or implement some algorithm or document something, write a tutorial and so on. And these personal and small group projects will be completed by September or October in another conference. Today, we'll be planning a few of them, or at least brainstorming, proposing ideas. And please, I'm asking everybody, please challenge us beyond the usual box of boundaries. It is not just data analysis now. It is anything you wish to see happening in the Clojure scene. We will begin by asking everybody to say something, if you can, about yourself, as we sometimes do. And if that's just a late hour or very early hour, then you might not want to say anything, then you can just write, please don't bother me, and that's just fine. Otherwise, it would be good to hear your voice for a moment. And yeah, so maybe it makes sense. Maybe I'll say something about myself. My background is math and statistics. My name is Daniel. I like probability theory and geography and community organizing, and that's what I do at the SciClojure group. And yeah, and maybe later on I'll share some thoughts about this day and yesterday. Maybe Svetomir, is it okay to ask that you would say something?
Yes, of course. So I'm Svetomir Dimov. I'm a cognitive psychologist. I have studied different topics in cognitive psychology over the last 10 years, including decision making, including skill acquisition, and now I'm studying collaborative skill acquisition, and collaborative planning. And I've been a Clojure user for a little over a year, and that's it. Thank you.
And needless to say, is also very much involved in building the knowledge toolkit and so on. And yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, Peter, hello. Thank you. If you're still with us, if you wish to say something, Peter. Oh, hello.
Yeah, hello. I'm Peter. I'm just working at the same time, and sometimes I'm kind of distracted. Yes, I'm Peter. I work for a reinsurance here in Switzerland, a big one. I'm a software engineer, and I was a developer before, but I was moved to a kind of an infrastructure team that provides tooling for business and IT developers. So yeah, I manage the Java platform and also these tools we're talking about, like R and Python for the business units. So yeah, I'll get to say more about it probably later, if that's fine.
Thank you so much. Fantastic. Hello.
I wanted to say, so one of my major interests would be to spread Clojure within within the company, but that threshold of getting tools and things to work in Clojure behind a corporate firewall, that's tough. I'm trying to install Clay on a remote machine at work, and it's just not working. So that is, yeah, that would be probably something I'll suggest, that you focus on business as well.
Yeah, we should chat about this, about whatever isn't working. That's helpful to know. And yeah, maybe Adrian. Hello, Adrian, if you wish to say something. Hello.
Yeah, I'm a Clojure developer. What feels kind of distinguishing in this group is that I have no math background at all. And that's maybe also what I'm interested in, I'm since Harold's here, the talks on TMD, I've enjoyed basically all of them a lot. But yeah, for me, it would be interesting to know a little bit how would you all think, how easy is it for someone without a math background to, I don't know, what's the best approach to then get the knowledge to work with some of the stuff, and do some kinds of data analysis and all of that. Yeah, that's mostly why I'm here. And yeah, it was great to see the talks on the conference the last couple of days where I'm completely out of my league, but still very interested. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the discussion, what comes up.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Yeah, and thank you for being with us, continuously throughout these couple of days, and yeah, and Xiang, hello. Would you like to say something?
Hello, can you hear me well? My earbud was dead for a while, but now it's back in charge a bit. Hello, I'm Xiang. I'm a Clojure dev for some years now. My background is astrophysics, but it's been like more than a decade since I graduated my undergrad. I've been thoroughly enjoying using Clojure, but was working a lot. But the working overtime or just in general, it was okay because it was, I was able to use Clojure. Last year, it occurred to me with starting of burnout that I wanted to do something to that I actually have more interested in and passion. That's where I, contacted SciNoj. And Daniel immediately responded with like, well, warm welcoming. So that's how I started. And currently I'm trying to build learn and build a tool regarding computational fluid dynamics as I am learning as I'm learning along the way. And my other interest is actually very, I was glad to hear Kira's presentation earlier on because I really want to involve in, attracting more newcomers to Clojure and SciNoj community to come up with a package or just learning materials for them to feel welcoming and have an easy start. And I'm very grateful this like welcoming and warm community and very respectful. And yeah, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me. And by the way, I'm currently in Korea and it's after midnight. But I think I'm awake with full excitement, so I'm good to go.
That's so cool. Thanks for joining us all the way from Korea. I love this.
Thanks. I actually used to live in Canada, so
Ah, cool. That's great.
Yeah, wonderful. Oh, and hello, Henning, and hello, Heather. That's great that you're joining us. So we are just in the beginning of another session, this open community chat. So it is great that both Henning and Heather just joined, and we're just introducing ourselves. And in a moment, we will be thinking together. And yeah, maybe Donald, would you like to? Is it okay to ask you to present yourself again and say something?
Sure. I am. It is not midnight here. It is lunchtime here. I'm by Washington, D.C. My name is Donald. So the last time I was involved, which was probably a year ago and something, my dog's barking. Sorry. I was a lecturer, so I was teaching data cleaning stuff using Python. I've since I still do that, but now it's like my side hustle. My main thing now is data engineering, where I also do it in Python. But working with data is very functional So I come over here to like think about it more along those lines so that I can go apply it back. So I'm trying to think of, yeah, I love the focus on getting new people involved. I mean, because I teach. And yeah, seeing those workshops just getting better and better is just incredible. So
Thank you so much. Yeah. Hello, Ian. Would you like to say something? Late hour for you as well, isn't it?
It's late. It's 10 o'clock, gone 10 o'clock. Yeah, I've been away from closure for a little while. Recently, I've been mostly studying synthesis techniques, the physical modeling, which is probably going to drag me away from closure for a bit. I'm trying to recreate things like saxophones and the like with physical modeling techniques. Anticipating the day where my antique VL70M dies and nobody's making things like that anymore. I came along this time primarily to support my good friend SciNoj, and also because I kind of miss the closure community. There's something quite special about the people around closure, which you don't get anywhere else, certainly not in Python, which I've been programming in recently.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, it is wonderful that you're here with us as well, again, at least, you know, for a while. But yeah, and hello, SciNoj. Are you colleagues? Is it okay to ask? Or you have colleagues?
We worked together at Flexiana for a good number of years, and we're currently working together on a little side project. Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm SciNoj. My background is in industrial engineering and MBA of marketing, so not really related to programming, but I work as a programmer in about 10 years, and I start learning Clojure from 8 years ago. I'm interested in logic programming and low-code systems, using low-code in anything. Based on my background as an industrial engineer, we appreciate efficiency everywhere, and whatever in the code I could improve it. I think it is good to improve it, like what Kira said in her talk. That's it for me, and I just want to add one extra quote. As Mr. Wood mentioned, we were colleagues in Flexiana, and I should mention that I find Mr. Wood the most senior developer in the Flexiana, which was a Clojure company. Some of his codes are somehow counterintuitive, but very insightful. I mentioned it yesterday. I want to mention it today as well. A senior engineer is who is doing less and encourage other person to do less. It means that senior engineer find optimized way, better way, not just doing things and so on. So that's it from me.
That originally came from some military person who said that if you want to find the best way to do a job, give it to a lazy man.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, hello, Giacomo. Giacomo, would you like to say something? Giacomo, sorry, Giacomo. Or maybe later if you wish. Hello. Oh, Peter did say something. And yeah, and Heather is here with us. Heather will be the last speaker of the conference a little later today. Would you like to say something about yourself now?
Sure. I'm Heather. I've been working in Clojure since 2018, but I'm not a data scientist. I just like playing with Clojure, so that's why I got involved with this. And I'm in California, which is why over here it's 8:30 in the morning. So I'm sorry y'all are very tired by now.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for making it in this early hour. Yeah. Henning, hello. Would you like to say something?
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm on a laptop. Yes, I'm Henning. I've been quietly watching this community for a while. It's almost a year since I had first interaction with Daniel, 10 months. I'm a software engineer. I work in Norway. I've been in and out of Clojure since 2018, but Java and C++ background since many, many years. I work in public transportation with vessels, marine vessels, and we have loads of data and business cases and an urgent need to understand the nature of a business, but no time to actually do something. That's me.
Thank you so much. And hello, Harold.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so I'm Harold. I'm in Colorado in USA. It's 9:27 a.m. here. My background is in math. I did combinatorics and algebras at the university, but I've done software for money the whole way. So basically been doing startups here in Boulder, Colorado for 20 years or so. The latest one is called TechAscent. This is the 8th year of TechAscent. It's the first one that I'm the owner of. And we're doing Clojure development on a contract basis for other businesses. Mostly businesses that don't know anything about software, so we can use Clojure without telling them. But for some other ones that are Clojure aware, people find our open source tools and then contract us as part of the business plan. And those open source tools are part of this ecosystem. We built the tech.ml.dataset, TMD, which organizes the data into tables and is part of this great ecosystem that's getting built up. I'm also super duper interested in bringing more people into Clojure, so I'm excited for that part of this conversation. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And hello, Kira.
Hey everyone, I'm super excited that this is happening. And I love that there's people from California to Korea on this call. It's like super validating of the decision to compromise on the time zone. Right now, I'm also on Mountain Time. I'm in Western Canada. I usually live on the East Coast. But yeah, so I've been writing Clojure for about 5-6 years, I guess. Actually, currently work for a sort of enterprise SaaS company building an advanced analytics for time series kind of SaaS thing in sadly Java and Kotlin, but I'm hoping in due time I'll sneak Clojure in the back door like all good Java developers do. But yeah, I'm super passionate about sort of working with data easier. I've spent most of my career building sort of data intensive web apps is how you might describe them. And so it's like I always joke that it's just basically putting spreadsheets on the internet. It's actually like a fairly lucrative problem to solve. And I think there's still not like a really great way to do it. So yeah, I think there's anyway lots of opportunities, and I think Clojure has a lot of really unique strengths that I think kind of make it a good fit for some of the hairiest problems in the sort of world of data like processing and engineering right now. So I'm super excited about this. And then yeah, of course, part of that dream is having sort of the widespread adoption that would allow us to grow the community and have those tools widely adopted. And so bringing in new people and making it really accessible and easy is something I care a lot about too. So I'm really excited for this.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And Giacomo, if you wish to add something about yourself anytime, then it would be lovely. And yeah, so here we are. yeah, we have, I'm looking at the schedule, just make sure, right? We have a long session. It will be as much as you like. It can be, oh, sorry. 80 minutes away of the end of this session. And I hope at least some people may stay, you know, for the major part of it. The idea is to think together. Yeah, and I know many people are already very tired. Many hours away earlier today, in the beginning of the day, we were Adrian and Xiang and Henning and myself, and we were chatting at the beginning of the day. And Henning was telling us about public transportation in the sea. And it was a good conversation. And we went back a few years, you know, because Henning knows some history. And then we went back more, and it was like 1,000 years back, where we were hearing a little bit about Norway and about the sea and the transportation and the different aspects of that, engineering and business and all that. So yeah, and I think today there were a few moments like that which were mind-opening, and maybe we can try to inspire each other at this moment too. And the scope of this call is to propose what you think we should do before the next conference is in September. And the format could be a personal or a small group project that will reach a certain point or to be shared by the next conference. It could be a research project, a small data analysis, teaching something, documenting something, creating a piece of art, making closure present in a space where it is still not so present, making something more accessible or well-known, or a few other things you may propose here. Let us expand and challenge ourselves with new ideas, not just data analysis as the scope of this conference, right? And we will go around with everybody, or at least everybody who may wish to say something, and you're invited to talk for a few minutes and propose something, or share a special experience you've had of something that you think could happen more. Like, for example, we were hearing yesterday lots of experiences from Harold, which are maybe, you know, showing us possible directions that could be happening more, and so on, right? So either an experience report or a proposal or something in between would be good. Maybe I'll just say that, you know, before we begin, we're talking about something which is important to us. Do you see what I mean when I say important? It is kind of something, you know, we all happen to do something with technology. We might keep doing that, and we want it to be simple and, you know, something in our company that we find comfort at, something that can be kind of, you know, easy to express. And I think that's why we're here. So it is kind of important to us, but I think it is never the most important thing, isn't it? Right? I mean, for all of us, there is always other stuff, and that's the challenge in a way, right? That's the challenge of continuity. I mean, all the speakers of this conference had this amazing journey, you know, making it in time, and a few others were actually, you know, for all kinds of reasons, couldn't make it for this conference and will make it next time. And it is always a struggle. It's always discontinuous because life is more important, right? And at this time, all of us have like local stuff around us and personal and global that is kind of bothering us and is more important than whatever we're talking about today. And that's our challenge, how to keep going with something which is important, but is never the most important thing. Yeah, you know, at this time, usually every Saturday, I go to the local protest demonstration, and in a moment I'll be hearing them from the window, and I'm not going because I'm with you, but typically I wouldn't be here, right? And that's the way it is, right? So I think part of what we're trying to create is a system where we are never alone, where we support each other in those small projects we'll be running, and where we can kind of cover for each other to create continuity wherever we don't have continuity, because we're all bothered about other stuff, right? So let us keep that in mind. And maybe let us propose some modest proposals of things that could happen in the coming year. And yeah, maybe somebody wishes to begin and maybe share an experience report or propose something that could be a project or even a continuation of something you've seen at this conference. Yeah, who may like to say something? I know all of you, because all of you almost have been saying things in those last couple of days, so there are lots of continuations that could happen at this moment. So maybe somebody would like to begin and say something.
Maybe I have many different threads I'd like to touch on here maybe, but the first one that comes to mind, I wonder if anybody else saw, I'm not even sure what it was, but it was a video, and it was Rich was talking, and it was recent. Maybe it was at the end of the last conj or some closing remarks or something like that. And he made this point that he was talking about this exact topic. He was talking about how are we going to spread Clojure further. And there was this, I don't know if I read into it too much, but there was this call to action that was like, go to a Java conference and tell them. And I was sort of like, whoa, okay, how do I do that? I wonder if anybody else saw that and if they have any thoughts about that, because that sounds exciting to me, but I don't really know where to begin with trying to do that. So if anybody has thoughts about that, I'd be super interested to hear them.
I think.
I have
Go ahead.
I have a perspective at least. A former colleague of mine, one of the top 3 programmers I've ever met. He's a seasoned Java developer since day 1 of Java, I believe. He's had an enormous outreach with the Java, not community because he's working solo, but environment. He's also a scholar in Lisp. Clojure to him is completely no-go. He can't see the point. He won't see the point. There's no way.
Interesting.
And the ecosystem, all the good arguments that we have, and interop, but no, he just don't want to touch it. That's just one perspective. It's an anecdotal perspective. I'm quite the opposite. I'm exactly the other way, but I consider myself to be one of the 49%ers. I'm a good programmer, but I'll never be above the 50 limit. Good as in amateur good, because I'm stubborn and I have a lot of experience, but I'm a very slow learner. So to me, Clojure was an epiphany, because I would never be able to mobilize the mental horsepower that my friend Jakob has. So I can reap all the benefits from Clojure. He just looks at it and no. But in a different sentence, if you approach him with Lisp, he gets all romantic and lost completely. So I believe in maybe I shouldn't say this because then you would challenge me to actually do it, but I don't have the time. I believe in workbooks in the shape of containers. We need to containerize something, give people a Docker with nothing to do other than trying to explain them how you open a REPL, or even better, in open a gateway through Clay.
Yeah.
But
Nice.
do it for the experts. Do it for people that really know how to solve problems in Python or in Java.
Nice, Henning. Thank you.
Yeah, great. So I think that was a great example of the kind of thing we wish to say here, right? So yes, we want to go to conferences, and just to be clear, if anybody here is gonna take on that path, they will not be alone as much as they like. And we like to support each other preparing talks, and that's something we may try a lot. Maybe if 12 people here will propose talks to Java conferences, maybe 3 or 1 will be accepted, and then we will help you make that talk. And so yeah, just one thing we could do. Yeah, should we keep going this way? Does anybody wish to propose something, a possible research project, an algorithm you wish to implement in Clojure, a library that you see missing, a certain field of use cases, an application that you think we should explore? Anything you've seen in your organization that you think you could share in the open in a way that would, help us build it, generalize it in the community? Siavash.
I'm thinking of what Kira said in the last session. I think, first of all, we are not living in a good economic situation, and just because of this, the focus of all companies are in the cost reduction direction. So if we want to make Clojure successful or make Clojure in data science successful, we should somehow promote it as a cost-effective alternative to other programming languages like Python or their toolset. And what Kira said, I think, is in that direction. Plus, I would open source a part of my work, which is automatic data science, which I presented yesterday. So I think that would also help as well. So that's it for me.
Is it okay, Siavash, to say, like, in a minute or two, what you presented yesterday for those who've missed it?
Yep. What I presented yesterday is a mix of a large language model and logic programming in data science. The part which I think is useful for data science is not the large language model. It could be used, but the logic programming part, you add different, for example, table clause or different data source, and you ask it, and it prepare the data for you. So I think it is a really time-saving thing for any data scientist and also for a Clojure data scientist.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Maybe another thing we could mention is that Siavash is part of our small meetup group of the SciNoj AI meetups, where we try to create new beginnings of small research projects we could do together as a group. And I think we had a long conversation about how we could take on that path over there. And maybe later we would like to say more on that, Siavash. Maybe we should begin with people who are at very late hour now. If you actually still wish to use your voice at this late hour, Xiang or Ian, if you wish to propose anything or say something about the directions you wish to see happening.
I was thinking about more looking internally. I remember maybe Peter earlier on mentioned about like convincing the company to use Clojure. And personally, my latest contracted work with this American company assigned me a bunch of like exploratory tasks, and it was a company using Clojure, but then it's not, the data science company, but it's sort of related. But building some POC was very easy with just adding Noj as dependency and spinning up my notebook and then using existing code and expand from that, and then analyzing, generating some random data, and also like plotting and showing. It was such a fun and also really fast job execution I personally experienced, but I don't really have a good skills of like yet to summarize it and then share to a general public, to be honest, like yet. But I think this is good, like, because I got to at least like share it here. And the reason that I mentioned this is most of times people who like Clojure really likes to stick with it, but also working at different companies using Clojure, at some point of time, they always have a moment where like, is this still the right decision? Should we switch to more major, language or tools or frameworks? Like they have questions about it. And I think having some good examples or demos of the storytellings of with in place might be useful, not lose existing audiences, if that makes sense.
Maybe I could add to that because the company I work for, been there for over 12 years. We shifted from Java to Microsoft technologies. And then business said they're not going on with that. They started introducing Python and R, MATLAB, and all these other tools so that they could do stuff themselves. And one of the very widespread tools is Shiny Apps that we had in the last talk. I think Shiny Apps is something we should follow and try to recreate in Clojure because they make very simple to build apps and distribute them amongst a business unit. So they have like one or two data engineers or data scientists, and they are able to create these Shiny apps very quickly and distribute them across the organization, and people love them. But Clojure doesn't have such a thing yet. I think would be one of the directions we should go. And then there are other things like in an enterprise, they probably always have Windows. And on Windows, everything is restricted. You can't simply say, I'm going to install Clojure. It would need to go through a certification process. So the only escape routes you have is WSL on Windows, where you install your own Linux and Ubuntu, for example. But then when you try to install a Clojure environment on Ubuntu in WSL behind a corporate firewall, that becomes a crazy route. I'm now trying to install a Clojure environment to run an LLM on WSL on a remote desktop, and things are just not working. Perhaps
I'm curious
that would be another.
If a browser-based environment would work in your situation. Like, would a cloud, like hosted environment be accessible, or would there be like internet firewall stuff that might get in the way too?
Remote environments we've tried.
Okay.
If you start
Nothing
working
exists
with
like
them,
this yet, but I'm imagining like there's a lot of platforms that have just a totally browser-based experience.
we've
So
worked
something
with
like
them.
that. Right.
But when you separate computation, the computation will be in a remote environment in a cloud, for
Right.
example, Asia, and your data will be local or somewhere else. That
Right.
becomes a nightmare. So that
Yeah,
was closed. The
I guess
separation of
that's,
computation and data, and
and you probably
ingesting data into a cloud, that costs a lot.
And you probably can't, and there might be restrictions on, you might not be allowed to just upload the data just anywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah,
In
that makes
Switzerland, you
sense.
can't move data to the US. That's
Right.
so.
For example, well, yeah, and you have to, yeah, it's an interesting problem. Like you're saying, either the compute has to be local or the data has to be remote, but it can't be. It's very
Yeah,
hard to combine.
right.
Yeah. Interesting. And
Yeah.
in your case, your data sets, oh, sorry, Daniel, one last question. Your data sets aren't like publicly accessible on the internet or something like that. They're like private internal data
So
sets. Yeah.
it's a reinsurance, so they have years of
Right.
data they collected over years, catastrophes, and I don't know what.
Super interesting.
Well, it's a lot, and
Right.
sometimes they have it on network shares in MATLAB files or in any other form, and the quickest way to access it is just to have it in these file systems, and then you run your R or MATLAB with it.
Very cool.
So trying to convince them that Clojure could help speed up things and make things easier is quite daunting, because when you show them Emacs or Visual Studio Code, we kind of, it's better now, but when I first tried it years ago, it was kind of everyone switched off, and then all the brackets and all that stuff. So
I think that is a great point of the kind of thing that eventually, maybe soon, should get some attention. And, having a clear use case like yours could be helpful, Peter. So maybe let us keep chatting about that and, dive into that together, if possibly it might make sense. Yeah. Ian was going to say something, I believe.
I was just wondering if this relates in any way to the VS Code, well, I can't remember what it's called, code sharing thing. We've been using this for programming in Clojure script, actually. And effectively what is going on is it's all running on my machine here, and Siavash is altering the code somewhere else. And VS Code runs quite happily on Windows, I believe. I've not actually tried it. I don't own a Windows machine. But presumably that would still work.
Do you mean the VS Code Live share?
Yeah, that's the one. Live share, yeah. I think that model of working might get around all sorts of operating system restrictions.
In enterprise environments, the problem is actually that the workplaces are quite restricted for security, and you normally need lots of tools, just because the data there's no kind of, as Kira said, there's no consistent philosophy behind the data. So people have data all over the place, and in different formats. So they need lots of different tools to manage that data. So just giving them Visual Studio Code is not enough. They might even want to use something different. So the tooling that itself is not the problem, but a programming platform that provides a consistent philosophy like Clojure does, accessing data and processing data. I think that's where things.
But I wonder if we might be addressing the problem a little differently here, because what Peter is asking for is everything is possible. Everything can be done in a restricted enterprise environment, but it takes time and it takes resources, money, and therefore initiatives are stopped. What you may be looking for is something that's more agile, something you can install, have data close, and do stuff immediately. I mean, if you could justify a business case for these problems, then of course everything can be solved. But that's maybe not what we're looking for. We're looking for getting up to speed without the big effort up front.
Right. And with the correct programming platform. And getting that across the table, introducing Clojure to a business unit would require things that they already have with R and Python. So you're not going to, they won't accept taking away part of what they already have to replace it with something that is not at the same level.
Yeah, maybe I really appreciate it, Peter, and let us return to that, and let us maybe return to the part of this meeting, which is a question of projects we wish to see happening during the coming year. And maybe I'll mention something that happened earlier today, where we had a chat with, I think, Ian and Kira and a couple other friends who are not here at the moment. And what we were discussing is our way of making conferences. And we had this realization that conferences which are online do not need to be bound by, you know, the usual constraints of capacity and so on. And we could reimagine whatever we do so that it would actually fit what we need to create. This conference has been a demonstration where we could use that to drive a few research projects. Oh, thanks, Ian. Yeah, and I think a few of the projects that were completed by this conference were, in a way, a demonstration of something we could do, you know, by picking the right format for us. But was it the right format for us? So we could rethink that. We could, you know, one idea was to spread it over a week. Another idea by our friend Generate Me was that a conference is not necessarily a moment of giving talks. It could be a moment of completing the writing of a tutorial. So some people could complete a certain project and share it at this occasion, but not necessarily as a talk. And another idea was that we could possibly create a conference which is not just a closure conference, but is a common space where we do meet other tech communities, but where closure is not necessarily a minority, but we discuss common projects in a certain field, broad or narrow, where closure appears together with Julia and R and so on. And maybe we could reimagine whatever we organize in September or October so that it would actually allow us building whatever we need to build. So that's one perspective I'm proposing. And the other one is what we actually wish to build. And, you know, some people here were discussing today and yesterday some hopes around interop or certain fields of research and so on. Yeah, so I'm just trying to kind of provoke you to share your ideas and thoughts. And yeah, maybe somebody wishes to say something.
Maybe I can repeat what I said earlier. So the big project that I would like to see in Clojure that I believe is missing is the equivalent of the targets library in R, which is a library that allows you to specify your entire data analysis pipeline, so your inputs, all intermediate steps, and the outputs. And that would then automatically rerun the parts of your data analysis that have changed. So if whatever input has changed, then everything downstream from that input that depends on it would also be rerun automatically. So I personally haven't used it much. I only learned about it a few months ago. But from my understanding is it speeds up the data analysis process for complex data analysis quite a lot. So that's
Could you say again the name of the library?
targets.
Targets.
Is it the kind of thing that you like deploy and monitor, or is it like local?
It's local, I think.
Okay, so it's not like necessarily like an airflow type of thing. That's super interesting though, and I think that's definitely one of the pieces that I yeah, like I mentioned in the last talk, that would be really cool to develop as a sort of orchestration, like DAG management tool. I'm curious if anyone's played with the new Flow async stuff. I think that's really promising for like that type of library. I haven't really gotten into it in earnest yet, but yeah, but core racing is obviously super powerful. It's kind of gnarly sometimes, but I'm wondering if the like the new flow, like little library stuff might be like an interesting avenue to explore for some of that, but I don't know.
Yeah.
There
So maybe
have been, sorry, Daniel. Okay. There have been some efforts in this direction, and I personally believe that Clojure would be amazing for this. This is like the kind of thing that we should be winning at. I
Yeah,
don't know. Was it in Metamorph or Kira? Do you know where this stuff was attempted?
there was some pretty sophisticated pipeline stuff in Metamorph ML, but I think it was pretty specific to like prepping and data and then training models, but I don't know if that's what you have in
Yeah.
mind or
Yeah, yeah, it probably was. I think maybe thanks for bringing up this targets at the mirror. I hadn't known about that. I think targeting something like this, whoa, pun not intended, is a good idea, and maybe to probably understand what was done before. I don't remember if it was Karsten or Jeremy or who was thinking about this, but understand what they did and maybe raise it up one level, because the Clojure should win at this kind of pipelining stuff. I have dug into the flow thing. It's pretty
okay.
cool. It is targeted, I think, in a lot of ways at sort of like within one process, like in the
Okay,
operating
interesting.
system sense of a process, like organizing that data flow. And I think if I said that and Rich was here, he'd be like, no, a channel can be a socket and you can do blah, blah. But
Right, I
think,
would have assumed it was meant for orchestrating across processes, but not
yeah,
necessarily.
and maybe it is, but I haven't seen, there's no like obvious
Okay,
connection. And maybe that's what
interesting.
it needs, is actually just like somebody to bolt it onto the Java 21 process, like all the sweetness of that stuff.
That's
But
super interesting.
yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
because
I'll say on that.
I
Thanks.
yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Like this is totally a thing where Clojure should just absolutely dominate. Because I think one of the really like strong, like Clojure's one of Clojure's really unique strength is the sort of like free parallelism that you can get by having these sort of immutable pipelines. And so like to do your sort of exploratory, like figuring out what your data is and checking it out and exploring it in just like a normal way, and then just changing all your maps to P maps is like basically you get this like massive scale for free, and it's like really really unique and cool and just frankly like difficult to do. Like that process of operationalizing your explorations, I think, is one of the like really challenging parts and one of the parts where it kind of falls apart with the existing tools. But anyway, yes, yeah, core racing isn't necessarily always the best solution there or whatever, but that's
I
interesting.
think hearing what you just said there, the next thing I would say is like, I think our community, and especially the broader Clojure community, has some of the deepest thinkers about data-oriented organization of problem solving. And I think
Totally.
that a truly data-oriented approach to something like targets, this targets and R
Yeah.
thing, is probably is winning, I think, in the long run, like you're saying.
That's a really interesting thread to pull on for sure, because yeah, I mean this is the thing, like this is just not how most people think about it. The should start like a free your data movement or something. It's like everything is in like objects and everything is locked in like these very parochial data structures, and so it's like you get your
Inside of a
data.
notebook, it's
Oh
like, yeah,
yeah,
it's nowhere.
totally. You
Yeah,
get
yeah.
your data frame inside a notebook or whatever, and then you have to like it's like just give me a list of numbers. That's all it is. And then, but you have to go through this excruciating process of just extracting and munging and like taking all this, unwrapping your data layers upon layers upon layers, and then eventually you just get this map. It's just a map of keys to lists of numbers, almost like 98% of the time. And it's like, oh my gosh, why can't we just pass these around? Like this is crazy. And of course, in Clojure, that's just what you do. That's it would be ridiculous to wrap that up in like 17 layers of accessors and getters and setters and whatever. Like nobody would ever do that. But that's like the standard of how these things operate. And then of course none of them work together. So Kafka's got its objects and like Spark's got its objects and Flink and whatever, and you have these like 17 different libraries that you have to cobble together, and every single one of them has their own bespoke like entire class hierarchy. And it's just like a crazy way to think about programming, in my opinion. Anyway, that's a strong opinion,
That is great.
but yeah, I think.
Yeah, and yeah, maybe I'm stopping you for a moment, and maybe in a moment you'll continue a little more. And I'll just say that my role in this call is to shake the tree once in a while, and so we'll just get another fruit. And so maybe you will continue with that a couple of minutes, and then we'll ask for another person to propose a completely different direction. Yeah, so yeah, maybe you wish to say something more before we go further.
No, I mean, I could soapbox for like hours about that, but yeah, I mean, I think this is the nice thing about Clojure is that, you know, everybody, it's kind of table stakes, like the whole just use maps thing is like one of my favorite Rotiki quotes, because it's so simple, but it's still so controversial. So yeah, just free your data and just pass it around, just naked data.
And also represent what to do with it as more data.
Right. Exactly. Pass it with its metadata and context, but as data, not as like a PDF that you email 3 days later or something. Like
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe I should ask, how should we go about exploring this direction? So one direction could be that maybe Tsvetomi or anybody would just pick it as an experiment and just begin working on that. Maybe in a small team, 2 or 3 of us will follow up on that and just try representing things and explore existing tools, like some of those build tools or data build tools, which are kind of related to this task, not necessarily Clojure ones, right? So we could begin a path with that. Would that be the way to go about these projects? And should we just, mention that in a few days in the chat, and a few of us might meet and try something? And yeah, maybe that's the way, right? And yeah, Tsvetomi, did you have any other thing to say about it before we continue to another topic?
Not really. That seems like a reasonable approach to have something like I don't want to say a reading group, but something like a work group where we explore the available solutions and try to understand them better and see if we can even come up with a better solution than any of the existing tools already.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe if we're done with this topic, I also wanted to mention my less ambitious project, which would be so right now, I think Kira mentioned table math, which is this library that tries to make I guess fast math better integrated with table plots, and I guess regression outputs are better represented, and so on and so forth. So my less ambitious goal would be to continue in that direction and basically start filling in small holes. So that means whenever I come up, whenever I bump against something that an analysis that I cannot currently perform in Clojure, simply add a helper function, add a new function that would be able to perform that analysis. And for example, recently I've had to run piecewise regression, or I've had to run I forgot what I want to say, but there are such small low-hanging fruits that can just be easily implemented.
I'm strongly in favor of this, and I would love to help. If there's a real piece of analysis that needs to be done that's inconvenient, obviously getting the data into the data set isn't the hard part anymore, but if getting that to the right Apache Commons Math or Fast Math or other Java library thing is the hard part, I'd be happy to help with that.
that's great. Yeah, we have 40 more minutes to this long session. Some people may need to leave at some point, so please, if you just wish to go to sleep or just rest, then no worries. But yeah, I'm glad we are all continuing for now. And yeah, does anybody wish to propose a completely different topic? And by the way, Harold, thanks for the notes. That's so helpful. Yeah.
Am I putting them in the right place, or?
Oh yeah, that's
oh, okay,
the right
okay.
place, I think, yeah. Yeah, so where should we go now? Yeah, so maybe I'll give an example of something that another kind of thing that might happen. So Heather and I, we have been, had a few conversations about geography enclosure, and Heather is gonna give a talk that is very geographic talk, very local, and we, like the way I see it, a very great demo of how to make a local story, data situated in data. And still, we're seeing that some geographic functionality enclosure is almost there, but not exactly the joyful way it could be. And maybe that's another thing we could hope for, to start creating geography tutorials towards the next conference, and maybe create a more complete story on that. And of course, we have a few friends who have been doing that, and we can reconnect with them. So that's an example of specialized direction that could happen in a few months, before the next conference. And I'm saying that to provoke other ideas of this kind, a field of study, a certain specialized field of functionality you wish to see happening, and where we could possibly begin a research project together.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I'm super curious what your experience with like geospatial data was like.
Yeah.
I think that's a cool. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just saying, I wish I had more experience in the geography thing. In fact, I've started looking into like a geography certificate with one of the local universities
cool.
here, because like, I feel like my analysis is a little primitive when it comes to that. But
It's
yeah,
such a rabbit hole. It's a huge domain. But yeah, I think like that's a potential area for Clojure to grow in, is these sort of like niche types of data. Like I worked with a company for a few years. The reason I learned Clojure was they were building this whole big things with Clojure because the graph database tools for Java were sort of the most developed at the time, and so they were using them from Clojure. So anyway, there's like if you think beyond just tabular data, I think we do have really good tools for tabular data, but there's already really good tools out there for that stuff. And so if you think about like geographic, like geospatial or time series or graph data or those other types of data beyond tabular, like maybe, I don't know, maybe there's some opportunity there, because I think that's the thing is like, what I would love to find is like our sort of like killer feature, like killer app, where it's like I was saying in the talk, where it just becomes like, it would be so dumb to use any other tool, because this is just the best way to do it. Like whatever that niche is, like finding that sort of one specific thing, like kind of what ML did for Python, where like, oh, if you're doing this, it doesn't matter if you already use R, or if you already know all these other things, like it's worth learning this because it's just the best.
Yeah. And I know that there are companies that are using Clojure for like GIS systems. I spoke with one like 5 years ago, but I wasn't really interested at the time into going into like a geography situation. And they are still like, every once in a while I see job postings for them, and they're using Clojure, and they like customers include like NASA and other like big companies with the geography. So I know there's like there's people using it.
Yeah,
for geography. I just don't.
The Office of National Statistics in the UK is, I mean, among other things, so that we were a contract, like they contracted this company, we weren't in-house or whatever. But they do like the land survey for the entire UK. So all of that data and those maps and, statistics and stuff are published. or at least were at the time in an app written in Clojure. So I don't know if that's necessarily the case anymore, but yeah, there's definitely some big players out there for sure. I sort of wonder in a way if that almost makes it more challenging because like, you know, so like I did some freelance stuff or startup stuff like for a time, and like I found it's pretty easy to get like those sort of smaller contracts. I mean, I guess I worked with like a big pharma company, but sometimes it's hard to get into those like big enterprisey companies or those big like governmental institutions unless you're like really established and really like have this like professionalized like sales pipeline. And so it's like it's interesting. Yeah, there was like, tell me about it. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to think about like I wonder, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud, I guess. But yeah, sometimes it's hard for, you know, like like a lone developer or like two people just hacking on stuff to pitch like NASA and be like, because the thing is, I think it's the way that governments think or that big organizations think about procuring software is just so bad. Like they think about it as if they're procuring anything else, like an item or a bridge or a highway or something like this. And it's like, it's just so different. Like two people or three skilled developers realistically could build like a very sophisticated GIS system for an organization the size of the ONS. Like the team that built that up was, yeah, like 4 developers. And so it just like the productivity of software engineers is just like not measurable on the same scale as the productivity of like other types of like workers. But so it makes it like it's difficult to convey that though to people who, you know, they expect it to be like you know, a super established like enterprisey company with 100 people and like a 50-year history. And it's like, that's just not, you'd be amazed what a couple developers can do, you know?
Right. Yeah, I definitely think there's space for it, but I myself need to study geography a little bit more to fully get my grounding.
Yeah, it's totally fair. Such a vast domain.
Yeah.
Really cool though.
Oh, Siavash is going to say something, I think. Oh, is that right?
Yep. There are some models which, for example, universities are developing for their research in some scientific domains, and they use Fortran or any language they are learned it. We have a teacher really, which when he teach us CNCs, he would teach us punch cards, and it was time when we had a CAMCAT software, but there's the same thing in other field as well. One example is there is a model called SWAP, which is widely used in all over the world for calculation of crop water requirement. This model is developed by the Wageningen University, and this model is completely written in the Fortran. And everyone who want to build a crop calculation software has the problem of using Fortran and its language, for example, C#, PHP, and so on. It is really hard. If we can build it, if we can rewrite it, for example, swap model in Clojure, I think it has a space that it's somehow like like a virus, like things that could be spread. Everyone want to use it would need to use Clojure, and Clojure is light, much easier than Fortran, I think.
Yeah, maybe I'll mention something which is in a way related. Yeah, so first, yeah, should we think about it possibly? Oh, thank you. Yeah, so should we possibly pick one of these situations where only an old implementation exists and collaborate on trying to implement something It may make sense if a few of us wish to learn a certain field of algorithms. It might not make sense if those algorithms are so detailed that it is actually a huge project, as it sometimes happens, with scientific models that look fun, but then when you look inside, then it is just so many constants and details and mutable arrays that you would not be able to, reproduce correctly, right? So we could check that possibly. Is that right, Siavash? Yeah, we should see whether how troubled it is. Yeah, and maybe another related topic that we might need to think about one day is Jank. So Jank is the new closure-like compiler to C++, and that's something that is proposed once in a while. And of course, our friend Jay is working on Jank seriously with a team of people who work together on creating this new compiler. And a lot of what we do here, of course, in JVM closure is very much built on top of the TechAscent stack, which is very much JVM based. And a lot of what we do is very much, thanks to whatever the JVM is offering us. And thanks, Harold had to go. Yeah, and then one day we may ask whether it makes sense to begin a new path with a slightly different language that might be exciting to some people. And it looks like for certain reasons, Jank seems to be, exciting and refreshing for certain people who were intimidated by the JVM. And I don't know whether we need to do anything at the moment. At the moment, everything that Jank people do is on the compiler side. So they're not looking to make any user side projects. But it will be a question we will keep asking, whether at some point we should start implementing something on top of that as a separate thread. And but I think that's not the right timing at the moment, as far as I understand. Yeah, we have half an hour for this session, as much as people like to continue. I think that's fruitful. A few great ideas have been raised here. Should we continue? Does anybody wish to propose anything, share any experience?
Yes, Daniel, I have a question.
Yeah.
There are many ideas, and I sense that people want to do something. Do we have an organized method of, let's say, writing down suggestions of projects to work on and voting for them and then registering? Do we have such a procedure we could follow? Because there are so many ideas. Is someone jotting them down?
During this session, Harold was typing some notes at the Zulik chat, and at this moment, Harold had to leave, and we will have this recording kept in the as an unlisted video that will be shared in the Zulik chat. And yeah, it is a good idea to make a list. Voting might not make sense because some thinking might be needed, and I think a certain project will be a valuable path if somebody may actually take on that project and keep going with that. And with most of the ideas we proposed here today, I think it makes sense to have a meeting that could be a beginning and just dive in for a moment and think further, and then maybe let go, or maybe actually have a new beginning at that meeting, if it makes sense. And then, eventually it will be one or two people who keep going with that project and keep using the broader group to support them. Does it make sense?
Yeah, I think there needs to be some kind of vetting, which projects to consider, and then asking people to choose one where they could participate. I guess it needs motivation. If something is not interesting, then you would less be inclined to contribute.
That's kind of the key. Yeah, is like so far since everything has been it's purely voluntary, purely like open source efforts. Basically people just kind of work on what they're interested in. And so I think there's some opportunities for funding through Closures Together for specific projects. Like if there's anybody who's interested in like dedicating a more focused period of time to a certain project, we could certainly help with putting a proposal together for that. But I think in general, if you totally nailed it, the sort of like, it's hard to like vote on things and like dictate priorities because it's really like people are going to work on what they want to work on at the end of the day. And so it's a difficult environment to sort of like, it's more about like coordinating those independent efforts as opposed to like directing them as much, if you know what I mean. But that being said, we're definitely open to like, if there's anybody out there or here who's like, has a sense like, oh, I want to do something, but I just don't know what, like we can certainly like, we could have a conversation about like, what are the top sort of priorities and what might be interesting, and then like sort of help that person like pick something. But I think basically right now it's like, it's such a small community that this kind of informal, like just basically like pick up whatever you want to work on, and if you want help, reach out to like, you know, me or Daniel or Harold or you know, Svetomir or someone like that. Kind of is working, I guess, if from my perspective anyway. I don't know what you think, Daniel, but
yeah, maybe, yeah, I think that is great. And maybe I will add a little bit about the way we work as a group. It's a good moment to talk about that. And it is not so far from what you said, I believe. So I think there is a certain sense of community priorities. And the way we reach this sense is conversation. So the Zulip chat is the space where we think together as a community. Sometimes somebody proposes an idea and some people respond, and then we get a certain sense of consensus, of important or not, right? And this is informal. There is no centralized decision of whether something is important or not. It is never like that. But sometimes we get a response that says that something is out of scope for the group, and then we would be more careful in picking that up, because some people thought it would be controversial, for example, right? And eventually, there are specific projects which have maintainers. So, for example, FastMath, the math and statistics library, has its own maintainer. One person who is maintaining that library. And if anybody is proposing anything to be added to the library, then it will be decided by the maintainer of that library. And that is the case for most open source projects we're running. There are very specific people who are responsible for them. For community projects, it is slightly different. For community, there is something called the SciNoj organizing team. It is just an internal Zulip channel that anybody is invited to join if they wish to be involved in community building. And the way it works there is that if there is any new proposal for community project that somebody wishes to take on, then they propose that project. And if there is anybody who thinks that it shouldn't be, then we avoid it, right? That sometimes I think we should organize something, and I ask, and somebody says, no, that is out of scope, and then we don't do it. So that's the way we go about community projects. We are just trying to be careful in terms of our scope as a group. And on the technical side, it is mostly, if that's about contributing to a certain project, that we ask the maintainers. And if it is a new thing, then maybe 2 or 3 of us may just pick up something new and try that and keep going as much as we can, and ask the community for ideas and opinions and support. So that is the way things work at the moment. We did try, more structured ways of decision making and planning, and they wouldn't work. They wouldn't work because we don't have continuity, because everybody on this call might not be here in a couple of weeks. Just the way, just that's the way it is. That's the way we work together. We know we are all discontinuous, and it is a privilege to be here today, and maybe in a month or a few weeks, and maybe in a year. But we don't have the continuity for any more structured processes. And so having lists and conversations, that's the way for us. Yeah, so thank you, Peter. And maybe let us have that discussion. Let us make it concrete with a few of your ideas over the Zulip chat. That's good. Yeah, does it make sense, Kira, what I said about the way we work? Yeah.
Yeah, totally. I mean, this is a whole like big meta topic that you could have an entire conference about, of like managing open source communities and like coordinating volunteer efforts. It's just like a tremendously kind of like, you know, wavy and sticky and challenging problem. But yeah, I think you know, the way we work, it's you know, it's not as fast or efficient maybe as having a dedicated team or whatever, but it's just in the absence of significant funding, it's kind of how we operate. And I mean, and maybe that's a good point to mention, like at some point, you know, that's also it's a total pipe dream. I have a lot of ridiculous dreams about this community, but like there are groups like NumFocus for Python and Posit for R. Like there are sometimes eventually they can coalesce into a sort of group of people who can build something that's commercially viable and then like fund the community. So we obviously don't have that yet, and Closures Together is great and very generous with their funding and often supports one or two SciCloj efforts every year, but it's still not like a full-time, you know, it's not enough to allow any full-time engineer to quit their job and actually focus on this full-time. But you know, that's something that is definitely like in the universe of things that we would love to accomplish. I'm so bad at turning software into money. Like I have no idea how to do it, but you know, in other universes and other communities, there are like Hadley Wickham, for example, who developed like 50 libraries and wrote all these books. He was employed full-time by an institution, and so that's what allowed him to be so productive. I mean, among other things, like he's obviously a genius, but anyway, yeah. I think our current process is a result of the kind of constraints that we have as a volunteer group. Like Daniel said, people kind of come in and out, and that's just the nature of this work. Is like, you know, some months maybe you have an hour a week, maybe you have 10 hours a week, and then maybe you're gone for a year and come back, and that's just kind of how it is.
Yeah, and maybe you're moving us to a different topic, which is worth discussing, and that is our hope for sustainability. And of course, there are commercial closure projects that, you know, actually exist, and we have been hearing about a few of them in the last couple of days. But yes, whatever we're trying to do here at the moment is not sustainable, and that's, you know, the core goal, and that's why we're at the moment at this year in this special effort to expand and create new spaces of, you know, which are more visible, more, you know, well known and accessible. And I think, Kira, your talk was so helpful because it was very much connected to the actual way things look in the industry. So you were offering us this, you know, overlook of the industry, and maybe that's something we should ask more about how we could connect to that. And I don't know if we have anything more to say at the moment, right? But that's something that should be addressed. And you know, maybe the question is how to begin addressing that. Right? Because there is this gap, there is, you know, it is a challenge to bring actual industry problems and look into them in the open, right? Which is what the only thing we can do, or the only thing we do, sorry, right? And then how do we fill that gap? I don't know, maybe, you know, anybody could have an idea, right? But
Yeah, totally.
yeah. Yeah, we have 15 minutes to this session, and then we'll take a break and we'll have Heather's talk and a little later, and not long time away. And yeah, so is there anything we missed on this discussion?
Do we have an idea of what is the most pressing thing that we would need to add to the tool set, or what's missing? Is there a common understanding of something that would would be worth working on as soon as possible.
Yes, like my limited, I don't have as broad a view as Daniel, but I think the table math stuff is really exciting and interesting. And I think, like Svedimir said, it's really low hanging fruit there because fast math already exists and is very good. But I think that step of like integrating it into the sort of like pipeline flow that we typically work with tablecloth data sets would be super valuable for sure. And that one's already started, which I guess is nice. There's lots of other like the shiny thing and you know, stuff like that would be interesting, but that would be a much heavier lift. I think there's a lot of easier stuff to pick off in that sort of world.
I think documentation is a pressing need.
That's a good
Kind of
point.
blocking us in a way that a few things are actually already there, but nobody knows because, you know,
Right.
yeah. And that's something that is actually good news because documentation is something that can be done and that can be an opportunity. You know, if anybody wishes to learn or relearn a topic, then, you know, just implementing that in Clojure and writing a tutorial, like a few people did in this conference, is something that could actually be joyful and actually a high priority for our current stack.
Which topics are completely there's not even a chapter on from the documentation, but still need to be covered?
A few major parts of the math library, the fast math, that actually you, Svetomir, has started covering with your little statistics tutorials and so on. I think these are important. Like, for example, signal processing, Fourier analysis. We have functions, but we haven't documented them. And that's the current situation, that the amazing math library, fast math, has transitioned into version 3, but it hasn't been documented, and it is actually huge. So we should just start picking those algorithms and writing tutorials about them. And so that is one major topic. And another pressing need is probably interop, connecting to other languages, which is something that a few people mentioned in this conference. So there are ways to connect to other languages, but none of them is just seamless. And we need that, and specifically Python is something that we need a better experience, a more, you know, robust experience of connecting to, of course, right? Because having all the specialized stuff is years away, and we don't want to wait years till we have everything. So we need to use other runtimes. And trying that, making it easier, just documenting and, you know, actually telling the story of a successful interop story and contributing to a few of our interop libraries, that is something which is also a high priority. Yeah, and if anybody wishes to pick any little or big part of that, then we can chat and see how we can collaborate.
I mean, I have the initiative, but I guess I've been, like we discussed, like already, things happens in life and then got delayed, but my initiative was to, you know, what Kira during her talk mentioned about, you know, standardizing and providing more coherent ways of presenting things. But then in my case was I wanted to focus on documentation. So visiting what we have at the moment, it provides a great like resources, but like Daniel mentioned, also missing parts. In order for more people to easily just take as a small task and provide their effort, I think is to if we could provide a template that how they could start contributing, could be a good way to get more involvement. So that's my current plan and hoping to do more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me as well, it would be a great entry point if I could work on a documentation, on the documentation part, and kind of capture a whole picture of the ecosystem of tools. Because right now, I know there's tablecloth, there's clay, there's this, there's that, but I don't see a general picture of how things should be used.
Yeah, the Noj book might be an interesting place to start. That might be there's a lot of like good opportunities to contribute there. 'Cause that's kind of the goal with Noj, is to like unify those libraries under the kind of one umbrella, similar to the tidyverse. So there's some like, I mean, lots of progress has been made there, but there's lots of like that would be a useful place to maybe start and see kind of what you could build upon.
Yeah, maybe I'll say something about that, about the Noj book. The Noj book is trying to be what you said, Peter, trying to be this answer to the question of where to look, what is the big picture of how things could be combined, but it is not that yet. And what the Noj book has at the moment is a collection of tutorials created by a few people. I think none of them is a native English speaker, and most of us writing those notes are not professional writers, maybe except for Svetomir, who really knows how to write and who is recently, you know, the main person adding great notes to the notebook. But most of us are kind of trying to write some notes, and we know they could be improved. And even just looking at what there is and figuring out whatever parts don't make sense or need to be rephrased or reorganized, that would be amazing help to this project. Just because, you know, it is an effort by a few people who try to document but were busy doing other stuff. And so just polishing that book would be of amazing importance, I believe. Yeah. Yeah, so Peter, as much as you like, maybe could we chat one day and think about parts we may wish to document together?
Yeah, sure. I currently have time, but as you said, things in life could change quickly. And but I currently do have time and can contribute.
Yeah, thank you. We have a few more moments to this call, which was a very long call. I really appreciate that people could stay here till like 2 a.m. or strange hours. And is there anything that we missed? Anything that we wish to talk about or propose another meeting for another day? Anything that you wish to see happening in the coming period? Yeah. Maybe, oh yeah, Ian may say something like, oh, hope. Oh no, I just hoped you would say something. I thought, no.
I have something on my mind. It's been on my mind for quite a while, but this is probably not the right place, although you may be interested in this very, very out there problem. If we've got a couple of minutes, I'll tell you about it, and then we can move on back to, because this is not specifically closure, not at all. But if we've got a couple of minutes, I'll tell you what I mean. One of my long-term obsessions, I won't call it a hobby, obsessions, is woodwork, particularly wood turning and making musical instruments. That's one I made years and years ago. And the technology around it, I'm talking 18th century technology here. This is when the cutting edge technology was the lathe. And you got things like, do you mind if I share a picture? If I just share my screen for a moment?
Oh yeah, we are all curious now.
Oh, you're good. Right. Is this working yet? Where's my, I'm not sure how I share. Oh, there it is, share button. Right, so this is a very, very old book written 18th century, chap called Bergeron, probably a pen name so that he didn't get bitten by the French Revolution. And it is full of pictures like this. And this is a highly complicated lathe. This one in particular is for making like slanted turnings. So you see this on the right hand side here, where it's not the usual cylindrical rotated curve thing. It's actually moving as it rotates, and the machine does that rotation. That wasn't the one I was after. It was the 190. Yeah, this is a piece of machinery for turning oval things, and my idea, the thing that's in my head, is that I want to be able to take these old woodcuts, translate these into three-dimensional models, and put them together into something that actually shows you how these things works. Now, I've been studying these since I was 15. That's God, more than 50 years ago. And some of them I still don't understand. But some of them, after much consideration, like this one, I could probably tell you how this oval mechanism works. Or this one is even simpler. This is another oval turning mechanism. But I want to make a model of these so that we can visualize what's going on here. This one is Bergeron. This one is Plumier, which is slightly older, 1749. This. And it is just chock full of this one. There's more in here that I really don't understand yet. But they are very, very meticulously done to the point where you get views of different pieces. And if you manage to sort out which piece goes with which, oh, that's a different view of that piece. We ought to be able to build a system where I can actually turn this into a moving three-dimensional computer model so that everybody can understand these things that I've been trying to understand for the last 50 years. That's the size of it. I'm not going to waste any too much time on this. I thought you might be interested.
Oh, did you say this was an 18th century book?
Yes, yes.
Oh.
This is Plumier. There are about 4 or 5 from that time period. There's not very much left. And there's Plumier, there's Bergeron, there's one I can't. It was part of an encyclopedia set that was made in the Reformation. And there's another one whose name I've also forgotten. But they're all done like this, extremely meticulously. These guys were the uber geeks of the time. And there's a lot of information there, primitive fashion. And just looking at these pictures, you can tell how the process of documenting a three-dimensional object in 2 dimensions has improved in the last 250 something. 1950, yeah, nearly 300 years. But if you take your time with them, it is good, solid information to the point where I have actually rebuilt one of the simpler machines. I have a treadle-operated lathe downstairs that it took me about 3 years to build a thing that is largely based on bits from Plumier, bits from Bergeron, and bits from the later Holtzapfel documents. And I would just love to see this brought into the light, where we can see how the deep thinkers, the creative deep thinkers of 300 years ago were doing these amazing things that are basically lost now. There's stuff in there that very few people understand and almost nobody does anymore.
I think Siavash has a comment.
Go, Siavash.
So what you want is a software, for example, which scans, which you give the page, and it start 3D modeling. It is really good example, good proof of could be good proof of concept for
Yes.
Clojure and Gen AI, which is I think it's very good to do it.
Okay, yeah. That would be the first stage. The second stage would be using those models and creating an animation from them to actually show the machine in working. But yes, I think to some extent AI, yes, would be the way to go. At the same time, these are not organized the way a more modern one was. Like that on the right-hand side there, that's actually quite clear. You know, this is views of the same piece.
I should say
And the
that
next row is views.
in a moment we'll have to end this call.
Yes, okay.
I want maybe you wish to kind of conclude and say a little more before we need to
Yes.
move on. So maybe I didn't want to stop you immediately, but maybe you wish to kind of add a little more and conclude.
This is a good a time as any to stop, because if you get me started on this, I will talk for the next 12 hours.
Yeah, I think it is kind of a beautiful way to end this part of the conference. We began this day with the old stories of boats 1,000 years ago that Henning was teaching us, and now we got to these 18th century instruments of wood. And I think now we can end this call. We did have a few great ideas. We will follow up on at least a few of them. And if anybody wishes to pick any of the things mentioned today, then let us have a chat and begin a new collaboration as much as you like. And in a moment, we'll say goodbye to the recording of this part. We'll stop the recording and return soon for Heather's talk. So unless there is any other short comment, I'll now say goodbye to this part of the day.